Please join me in welcoming Brian Liles to the stage.
Thank you.
There you go, Brian.
All right. So, I'm going to talk about DevOps. And what's interesting is, how do I talk about boring DevOps after a talk where we are being encouraged to think more about diversity and more about the world and more about how we fit in it? Well, I don't know, but I'm going to try. So, DevOps. I hate to say this, it kind of pains me, but DevOps is a made-up thing. And whenever I go to events and I see us talking about DevOps, I'm always curious, and I'm thinking, well, what do they mean by DevOps? It's a total made-up thing. And I actually had this thought a few years ago, and last month, I was at Devops Days Ghent, and the gentleman on the left here is Andrew Clay Schaefer. And he's one of the people who actually invented the term DevOps. And we were at dinner, and he was sharing some good news about a new job that he has at IBM, and he was super happy. And I asked him, and I said, well, how did you do this? He says, well, here's how it worked, Brian. About 10 or 11 years ago, I made up this word called DevOps. And then everyone latched onto it. And he says the greatest part about it is that it literally means nothing. And I'm like, oh, crap. Oh, you just blew my mind here. Hold on. So you're saying that all these DevOps groups, all these DevOps companies, all these DevOps engineers are basically, it's all made up? He's like, yeah. So at that one moment, I realized that DevOps is the German word for, eh. Here's a picture of me just holding my hand up. Praise the Lord. No, and actually, this is great. I really wanted to show this picture is because I do make light of DevOps, and I think and I like to have jokes about it, but I'm going to be very serious here for a second. My passion for developers working with operators to making the space that we actually work in every day better is a huge deal to me. And it was such a huge deal to me that I was honored last month, or I guess I travel so much I don't even know when it was. Sometime in the past 45 days, I was in Belgium speaking about DevOps. And it was a big honor for me to be on the stage for the 10-year anniversary. So, empty slide to collect my thoughts. What is DevOps to Brian? And you know what? And this is the best part. What is DevOps to Brian? Really, what you think about DevOps for the next 20 or so minutes doesn't matter, because I'm on the stage, I have the clicker, I have the slides, my company's in the background. What I say matters, and what you say, we can talk about it later. But really how I think about DevOps is trying to distill it down to a simple term. How do I think about it? Well, I think about it as operationalizing development. And I don't even know if operationalizing is a word, but it makes sense to me, so I'm going to roll with it. So how do we think about DevOps? Well, I like to think in little circles with words in them. So let me explain to you how I think about DevOps. Or actually, even better, how I should not think about DevOps. So we talk about CI and CD, and I have a real huge gripe. And I know I'm at Jenkins World right now, and please don't get the hook and bring me off the stage for saying this, but the way that we've approached CI and CD up to this point, we got it wrong. Yes, using CI to generate artifacts is a great thing. We are better for it. And yes, having CD, well, which CD is it? Is it continuous delivery, continuous deployment? Well, that doesn't matter. Having great ways of moving software to environments is a big deal. But the problem is that we've shortened them down to CI and CD, put a slash in the middle, and now we've canned this thing, and people don't even understand what we're trying to do. Does your team use CI, CD? Well, yeah, but what for what end? I don't know. This is what we're supposed to do. We'll throw some Jenkins at it. We'll throw some Concourse at it. We'll throw some Spinnaker at it. We'll throw some Circle at it. We used to throw Travis at it. Now we'll throw GitHub Actions at it. Problem solved. Check. Move on. The next item here is IAC. And unfortunately, I am not a PowerPoint wizard. This slide took me 5 minutes to create, which, it's 5 circles with words in them. It should have taken a minute to create. But IAC is infrastructure as code. But we can also think about it as automation. We talk about automating things in our DevOps journey, but really, you know what? Automation and infrastructure as code, that's not DevOps. Next thing we have is observability. And I'm trolling myself because I hate the term observability. I have been working on computers for money for a quarter century. Whenever back in the 90s, we monitored things, we collected metrics, we looked at logs. We didn't quite have traces because we didn't have that tech at that time. But a few years ago, we, as a community, invented this term observability. It's like the longest troll. It's like, how about take something we've been doing and assign an even longer word to it? And then, once again, no one even knows what it means. So, not DevOps. Empathy. Empathy is an interesting one. Whenever I was on the ops side, I tried to care about my developer friends and my security friends and my network friends. And when I was on the network side, the same. And now that I'm on the dev side, I really think about the people who are managing my infrastructure. But guess what? It's not DevOps. In collaboration, working with others is super important. For a long time when I was a kid, I am 6 years older than my younger siblings, and I hated sharing toys. That's my G.I. Joe. That's my He-Man. You know what? All these Matchbox cars, they're mine. It wasn't until I became an adult and started working that I understood the power of collaboration and what multiple minds working together could actually do. But guess what? It's not DevOps. So, what I'm going to do for this rest of this talk is, now that I've tried to break it down and distill all your beliefs in what DevOps is, let's build it back up. So instead of saying DevOps, we're really paid to do one thing. And I don't care where you work on the stack. Our mission is to get code into production. And you're saying, well, I work in ops, that's not my job. Well, guess what? If the code doesn't get to production, we can't sell whatever thing we're selling right now or steal whoever's identity if we're a social media company or anything like that. Getting code into production is the paramount. It is the most important thing we can do. So let's think about that. So to get code into production, we have to have deployments. And 3 things, and I just grabbed these out of the air. I want consistency, I want reliability, and I want confidence. So really, let's break this down. What do I mean by that? Well, I want to be able to deploy consistently. I want to do whatever I need to deploy. I want it to actually go to where it needs to be. And I want to be able to do it again, and again, and again. And then I also want it to be reliable. I don't want to have my secure copy go to this server and someone rotates a key out and it doesn't work anymore. I want to make sure that where I'm deploying to is actually fairly durable. And then finally, I want the confidence that whatever we're doing works. Because if we're not confident, we're going to change it, which means it's probably not going to be reliable. And if it's not reliable, we're not going to have consistency. So this is a little bit of a thought here. 3 ideas: consistency, reliability, and confidence. So now that I have my goals, I can think about a framework. And this is one of the problems that we have. We, as a community, cargo cult all the time. What does that mean? Well, such and such said this was a good idea, or even better yet, I'll give a great example. Google says this is a great idea, and we really ascribe to be as big as Google one day. So, therefore, we should do what Google does. Makes sense, right? And just don't get me wrong, Google is amazing. Think about what we've done here. The way that we actually monitor our software, we could thank Google. The way that we think about running things at scale, we could thank Google. The way, things like older things like HBase and all of our big data, we could thank Google. So they have a lot of smart people there. Why don't we just copy what they're doing? Because it would be easy to be successful if we just copied Google or Microsoft or Apple or I was going to say another company, not them. But think about that. And so what I'm trying to say is instead of attacking the symptoms of our problem, let's define a framework, and we'll have some ethos in our framework, and then we'll work with that. So here we are. Understand what constitutes a deployment. And the thing is, I can't tell you that. You tell me. What are you deploying? In my line of work, I do Go, and I do some web stuff. I'll write Rust, I'll write Java. I haven't done PHP in a long time, but not because of lack of want, just because I haven't done any. I do Python. I love OCaml, but I can't find anyone to write it with me, so I don't get to do that anymore. So that's never part of my deployment. Understand where you are deploying to. So the most interesting thing here is I'm not here to sell you anything today. I have my VMware shirt. I just happen to like this one. It looks nice on the stage. But I'm not selling anything here today. But understand where you're deploying to. So you're deploying on-prem, deploy on-prem. You're deploying to a cloud, deploy on the cloud. But understand what you're doing whenever you are deploying. Because the operational requirements for deploying to vSphere are a little bit different whenever you're then doing something to Google Cloud with GKE or Azure and whatever you happen to be using over there. Or, this is also reInvent week and whatever 1,000 services they're releasing this week. Understand what you're deploying to. The next piece is understand when you need to deploy. That's an interesting thing because you'll get people that say, oh, you can't deploy 50 times a day? Well, you know what? I have a Hello World company, and we make a Hello World app. It literally just prints Hello World to the screen. How many times a day do I need to actually deploy this application? Or, you know what? I work for a large government entity, and we change our application when regulations change, or we can't move because if we take this system down, vital things are supported by this. I don't know. You need to understand when you need to deploy. The next piece is understanding why you deploy. Because if we think about it, we read a lot of books, and there's a lot of great literature out here right now, but we need to understand why we are deploying. Does this actually need to happen right now? Can we just batch these up? Do we need to change a deploy for every single change? Mm-hmm. And then the last piece, and something that a lot of people don't actually think about, is you don't deploy and then clench and hope that it works. You don't deploy and then go look on social media and see if anyone's complaining. You don't deploy and listen for your boss. Or you don't do what I do. You don't deploy and just say, you know what, life's not that important, so I'll catch it in the morning. You need to understand if your deployment works. And really, it should be telling you rather than you asking. So, still thinking here, building up. So, I like a story. I love a good story. When I was younger, before I was legal drinking age in the United States, we went drinking, and the police, not having actual crimes to solve, would come find young kids to chase around because they were drinking illegally. I had this other friend, her name was Sasha, and one day she came over to my apartment and she told me this great story about the time when she was drinking, something that came from the earth illegally, and she had to run from the cops, and then she had to hide from the car. Then she had to get under the car, and then the car started to move, and she almost got ran over. And I'm like, wow, I'm telling you, everything is a great story right now. So today, I am not Brian, the engineer from whomever. I am writing a novel. And I'm a novelist, and I write action thrillers. I write action thrillers about spies who go off and do crazy things, and they kill a lot of people because why not? We like people who kill a lot of people. So what do I need if I'm an author? Well, some pencils, right? Not pens, because I'm left-handed, and if you're left-handed, you realize if you write with a pen, you get pen hand. And left-handed people in this room will probably understand what pen hand is. And I don't want to write across the page. I actually just want to write like a normal person. You use a computer, right? We don't use WordPerfect anymore. We use Word, or we use Google Docs, or we use other things. But we generally write our novels with computers. We have an editing process. We have an editing process because it takes more than one person to write a book these days. And then we have a publisher who actually gets our book out there. But what do you care about? You don't care about me, the author, and all the stuff that I need to use to write a book. You only care that my story is compelling and has a satisfying ending. You don't care that my dog died halfway through the 4th chapter. You don't care that I wrote half of this on the way to the conference, like a lot of speakers do at talks. Ding. You don't care. No, I'm going to stop on that one before I get bad tweets. What we really actually only care about is that, let me go back here. Because when I was talking about the pencils, the computer, the editor, and the publisher, this is why we care about that. We care about our pencils as authors because it's important to capture the process. When we have computers to type our stories, we can actually change them. It doesn't have to stay in one place. When we have a good editor, for people like me who can't spell, we make sure there's not so many typos in our spelling. And a little sidebar here, I was reading the Unicorn Project, and they use the there, T-H-E-I-R, instead of a T-H-E-Y''re, and it just like blew my whole night. I just went to bed after reading that. So a good editor can bring clarity. And we need a good publisher, because you can't just write a book. It's not Field of Dreams like the movie from the 90s. What it is you need a publisher to make sure that people are out there reading this story. And a thought that I had was, wait a second, this is DevOps. And you're like, what do you mean, Brian? Well, here's the problem. Like I told you before, I'm making this up as I go along, so this is DevOps. Suspend your belief. So let's talk about how this is DevOps. Well, a popular term right now is Devops Transformation, and this is a formula where we'll take a function and we'll apply a formula to that function to actually get our transformation. So let's do this real quick. Controversially, DevOps isn't a person or a group. If you work in a company and they have a DevOps group, that's not DevOps. But here's the thing. I'm only saying this to get you thinking, because controversy breeds innovation. So here's two things that are going to happen. Either you're going to agree with me and you're going to double down and work harder on it, or you're going to disagree with me. You're going to bad tweet me or whatever, send an email to my employer, that's fine. But you're going to work harder to actually prove that what you are doing is a good idea. So either way I win. By saying something controversial, guess what? I make the industry better. And DevOps is not a mystery novel either. And what do I mean by that? Well, we all read books, and I found out early in my high school career that for most English teachers or novel or literature teachers, you could read the first chapter, then you can go all the way to the end, read the last paragraph on the last page, and decide, well, maybe I need to go back 5 pages, and maybe I need to go back that many pages. DevOps is not a mystery novel to be read like that. We need to understand it from front to back. So, let's think about this. DevOps, a methodology. And this is my big thought. Figure out what your goals are. And I already told you what my goals were at the beginning. I want consistency, reliability, and confidence. I don't care how it happens. So, to do this, what if I created a workflow for generating artifacts? I had an automated process that looked at my GitHub or GitLab or whatever I'm using today, and it actually ran the test, and it built an artifact. So let's say I want to generate a Docker container at the end of that. that sounds like a good idea. What if now I decided that I needed a workflow to deliver software to my test environment, my UAT environment, my pre-prod environment, my staging environment, my production environment? Sounds like a good idea too. Workflow is good. And what if I had a method to define the current state of my application? Because what I realized is that declarative configuration is better because I actually understand what is installed at any given time. And what if I had a method for determining if my application was working correctly? And then, what if I had an ability to understand how my coworkers were feeling? I mean, I don't have to care, but I at least could understand. And then what if I actually concerned about had real concern for my coworkers? Not about what they had to eat last night for dinner, because who cares, really? But whenever we come to work and we work as a team, I'm actually really concerned for their success, and I will do things to enable their success. So at the beginning, I was talking about these things that aren't DevOps. And they're still not DevOps. But there are things that you should investigate if you want to bring DevOps into your organization. And so CI/CD, automation, observability, empathy, collaboration, they aren't DevOps. Just because you do any of these particular things does not mean you're doing DevOps. But we find that practices that ascribe to have a DevOps-like workflow use these 5 things and many more. Just something to think about. So, AppOps. Because since we're inventing terms, might as well create one of my own. And here's something funny. I actually work for one of the people I work for 2 of the people who created Kubernetes. We're good friends, we're great co-workers, and the other day, Joe Beta came to me and he says, we should try something called AppOps. And I'm like, like that talk that I did 3 years ago at Velocity? He's like, oh. No, I just had this thought. It's great. Let's do AppOps. So let's think about this. Wouldn't it be neat if we, instead of just thinking about the dev and ops piece, that we actually paid attention to the operations of our applications, not just getting them there, not just monitoring them around, but actually going into how our applications work and thinking about it like maybe an infra person would thinking about it. Like thinking about making security a first-class topic, not something you do to get past auditors or make your chief information security officer happy. I don't know. Just think about it. So, where do we go from here? Well, I don't know. So we are here, and it is December of 2019, and we're at Devops World, Jenkins World. I walked around through the booths yesterday, and I took lots of notes. And I've seen some interesting trends. Jenkins Cloudbees as a company had this huge bet on Jenkins. And before that, Hudson from many years ago. So you would create these Jenkins clusters, and you would actually have all these workers, and you would build, and you could have continuous integration and continuous delivery. But then, as you saw on this stage yesterday, that they are really doubling down on Jenkins X. And that's a total different way of thinking about this problem. You know what? At the end of the day, you can still get software from your developers to your production. So I guess that still suffices, but there's a huge gap. So you, as practitioners, you as people who actually take time to go to conferences like this is where you all fit in. There is a gap from where we were to where we want to be. And you're waiting for vendors to do that. But here's the thing. You as end users, you as people who actually want to come to these events should be defining those gaps, because guess what? Jumping from Jenkins to Jenkins X is like jumping from A to like L, if you're using the English. So it's not like all the way to the end, but it's like a pretty good jump. And the concepts that we're putting out there right now are pretty complex. So where do we go from here? Well, first of all, what we need to do is we need to use these products. Do you like them? It does not matter. Because what we're trying to do is suss these ideas out. Because guess what? Nothing we've done is created in a vacuum. So a good example. Who here likes Terraform? Isn't Terraform amazing? Right. Michio Hashimoto wrote that. Before that, he wrote Vagrant. But back to Terraform. So before Terraform, people were using Chef. Remember back in 2008 and 2009 when people were like, Chef, oh my God. And then before that, there was Puppet. Oh, and then and sometime after those, there was Ansible. But let's go back to the 90s. Anyone here remember Cfengine? We've been doing this stuff for 20 years. And it's not that all the ideas that we had in Cfengine are gone. They live on in different forms all the way up into what we're doing now with Terraform. But we've figured out declarative is a good idea, so we're using that more. Who here remembers when Windows, like who would use Linux over Windows? I'm sure there's someone here today that will say that, well, I would never use Linux. But now the cloud is mostly based on Linux. I was one of the first engineers at DigitalOcean, and I'll tell you what, never in my mind did we ever say, you know what, I think we can do this with Windows. No, we didn't say that. We actually defaulted to the point where we could do this with Linux. So what I'm saying is that just because things are like they are now does not mean that they will always be this way. And here's something else. I mean, I'll get a little personal with you all. My parents are from the Deep South. My grandmother's grandmother was a slave in the United States at the end of the Civil War. Think about that. And now I am up here at Devops World, Jenkins World, giving keynotes. I've been to 8 or 9 countries this year. I literally ran the largest open source conference in the world. And back in 1865 or 1864, that's 130 years ago, 140 years ago. Actually, I can't do math. It's 150 years ago. But still, that's not important. My math is not what we're talking about right now. You understand where I'm coming from. 150 years ago, look at me doing this. And look, I'm here now. And you know what? At least a quarter of you are believing what I'm saying. And that's the amazing piece. So we're at Jenkins. We're at all these tools that got us to where we are. But guess what? Controversy breeds innovation. So think about that. So we never accept the status quo. And even when we get to Jenkins X and we're looking at it, we're like, well, we can do better. So let's continue to do better. So my call to action to everyone in here, especially you leaving right now, is don't settle for what we think is good. The people who invented the term DevOps didn't. The people who have actually started all these popular applications didn't. Challenge it all the time. And then take what you've learned from that challenges and make the world better. And with that, I'm done. Thank you.
Thanks, Brian. Thank you.